how do you make something as large as the IPL larger? It seems this season we got the answer with a disruptive digital IPL experience. The 2023 edition of the Indian Premier League was like no other before it. The action on and off the pitch left us stumped, and we could barely keep up with the viewership records that were broken during the league. But what really set this season apart was the great digital leap. IPL streamed free and in many languages with a certain degree of interactivity at its core, the immediate impact of which is there for all to see. In fact, the official streamer of the IPL, Viacom18's JioCinema, witnessed the highest ever peak concurrency globally at 3.21 crore. It amassed a mind-boggling 1,700 crore plus video views over the season and reached over 12 crore unique viewers just in the final. The platform itself recorded 2.5 crore app downloads in a single day. It was, by any measure, a groundbreaking year for the cricket property and for sports entertainment in the country. But it was also the year a digital IPL democratized television for advertisers, making the league accessible to a lot more advertisers than linear TV, for instance. There's a lot to wrap our heads around. So to break down the season's biggest highlights and decode the key takeaways, we have with us Anil Jayaraj, Chief Executive Officer, Sports at Viacom18. Hello and welcome to Storyboard18, Anil. It's lovely to have you on the show.
Thank you, Delshad, for having me.
What a season it has been. And I just want to begin with asking you straight off the bat, what were some of the top highlights for you?
So in a season as great as it is, there are lots of things, but the top 2 or 3 things that come to mind. First is, the number of people that we were able to get onto our platform. The finals alone had, 12.2 crore people coming in. And as you rightly said, 3.2 crores of them concurrently. And that is, a testament to the technology that we've deployed behind this. So that's obviously one of the big highlights. The second one is the number of advertisers that we were able to get. At last count, it was over 800. And that sort of number has not been seen, not only on IPL, not on any property anywhere in the world on a single event. That would possibly be my second point. And the third one is possibly the scale of production and content we put up. 17 feeds, 12 languages, out of which quite a few were done for the first time. So those are probably the first few things that come to mind.
Absolutely. So we heard some of the numbers. I mentioned a few numbers earlier. You mentioned the advertiser numbers. But let me just sort of take a step back a little bit and ask you on a personal level. When you saw those records being broken, we saw the mind-boggling numbers. What goes through your head, right? What are you thinking? How are you thinking of maybe beating that record? Just give me a little insight into what goes through your head when you see those numbers happening in front of you.
Great question. This was our first year, so we knew what we had to break. So basically what we had done is we had planned for it to say that, look, if we hit this, how are we going to manage it? And this is a massive technological challenge, which we were pretty sure that if we were to hit these numbers, we'd be quite okay to manage it. So that the experience for consumers is great. You also work on a strategy which ensures that, look, there is a real chance that we can do it, right? And, as I've said on your show before, our focus was on ensuring that there is no denial, there's no barrier to consumption. So whether it is on account of affordability, languages, we try to take out all of them. So you plan for it, you plan for what happens if it happens, and then you try and make it happen. That's what I'd say.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now let's get a little bit into some of the the highlights and headlines of this IPL. For instance, we saw sort of this being a game changer for an IPL. Now, when it comes to viewership, what are some of the behaviors you think are here to stay, and some of the insights that you are focused on in shaping your strategy going forward? What are the insights and feedback that you're getting that will inform what you do next?
So, and let me just take those questions in order. So the first thing is in terms of what are some of the behaviors that we think is going to stay. So if you think about what we were trying to do, we were trying to inculcate this habit of long-form content consumption coming onto digital. And that, I think, has been the cornerstone of what we've achieved. If you think about it, we got about 60 minutes per consumer watching IPL on digital.
Significant.
It is, because that is what anybody on television consumes. So that's why it was a major, major milestone for us. The other sort of big learning for us, which was actually a bit of a reinforcement of our thinking, was that if you provide content in the language or the cohort that consumers typically love. So for instance, if my mother tongue is a particular language and I love watching content in that, and I can be provided content in that, there is much greater chance of people watching for longer. So that's been really helpful for us.
I'll come to the point about language, of course, because that was a huge eye opener for a lot of people, including advertisers. But taking a step back a little bit and talking about convenience and personalization are just a given now. People want these seamless experiences. So any sort of learnings on that front? You mentioned, of course, 60 minutes of viewing time. So in terms of giving that sort of personalized experience, just dig into that a little bit if you can.
So the great thing about digital consumption is that it is very, very adaptable to your behavior and your needs. So suppose you've sort of chosen to watch it in a particular manner, it remembers and it sort of provides you the same experience repeatedly, and it keeps learning. So it keeps learning. So if Delshad were to come onto the platform, it keeps learning about how you consume and then tries to provide content consumption which is matched to what you would like. And that, I think, goes beyond languages. And we also did a few interactive things, including we had this Jito Dhandanadhan, which was a play-along version, which again gave us great insights into how Indian consumers think and consume content like IPL.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now coming to, of course, the big piece of it all, which is sort of the language part. There were JioCinema offered 17 simultaneous feeds in 12 languages. Now, of course, language democratization, as I mentioned, was a huge game changer. And from the conversations I've had with a lot of advertisers, it was a very eye-opening experience for a lot of people, especially to see the kind of sort of impact it had on someone, watching the IPL in the language of their choice, and across age groups, right? So we saw feeds like the Punjabi commentary and the Bhojpuri commentary really sort of going through the roof. Now, when it comes to this language piece, what were you sort of seeing and hearing from advertisers, from viewers? And again, how does that sort of go back into feeding your strategies and how you sort of sharpen and sort of change the experience going forward?
Right. So what we started off with was to understand how consumption of content happens in the country. And one or two things that we found which sort of stood out was that apart from the conventional South Indian languages, which anyway are sort of done separately, we also found that languages like Bhojpuri and Punjabi were severely under-indexed, as in other broadcasters had actually not put it out for consumers. And these are very, very large set of consumers who happen to be there. And that's why it was actually, once we looked at the data, we were pretty certain that we want to do some of these languages. Yes, the challenge was that it's the first time somebody's done Bhojpuri, and Punjabi has not been done too often. But we knew that there are enough consumers there. All our research suggested that, look, people want to consume it in that, and that's why we put together this feed. But languages are not the only way people want to consume. They also want to consume with their group of friends. So for instance, we also found that young urban women probably under-indexed a bit on consumption. And towards that, we actually built a specific feed which targeted them, or people who are very keen to have a slightly lighter view of how the cricket game goes on, and in English. So that was, the insider feed which we did. So quite a bit of this, while 17 sounds quite large because it's never been done before. actually there is, to the level of customization that you want, there is no end to where you can go. So you need to make a cut based upon what makes sense from a business point of view, but we were quite happy with the cuts that we went in with. A lot of the information that we've gathered from there will inform our strategy going forward, especially in terms of what we shall offer consumers in the next season.
Hold on to that thought, Anil, because we'll take a quick commercial break and be right back to go over a record-breaking IPL season and break down the headlines and highlights.
CNG is good, but to get something, you have to give up something.
OMG! It's CNG! Big boot, big appeal, big reaction.
So that you understand the impact of the policy on your loans, your savings, your investments, and your business.
The RBI monetary policy at these times on CNBC-TV18.
Hello and welcome back. You're watching Storyboard18 and we're in conversation with Anil Jayaraj, Chief Executive Officer Sports at Viacom18, who is giving us the inside view of how IPL on Jio Cinema has changed the game for the streamer, viewers and advertisers. The bit about, the feed calibrated to female viewership was very interesting. Could you maybe dig into that a little bit more?
Sure. So we actually found that, look, while interest-wise and, people who tune in, men, women, everybody follows IPL. And, the full credit to BCCI for putting out such an amazing property. And especially this particular version of 2023 was brilliantly done by BCCI. Lots of close games and, real excitement. So that was there. And what we found is that the level of interest was actually quite significant across. But the way people consume content is when it appeals to them. And that's why what we were trying to do is we were trying to change the lexicon, we were trying to change the grammar with which certain cohorts view it. And that's where I think the sort of people that we had come on, including brand ambassadors, not only brand ambassadors, also talent like Sania Mirza, or people who actually can help connect with that audience was really good. And I think if one were to look at the objectives that we had set in terms of consumption, that is one of the cohorts that grew really, really fast for us in terms of actual number of viewers and the viewing minutes.
Yeah, and it's interesting to see that evolution happen because, of course, when the IPL began in its early years, it really broke into the female viewership cohort because that was lagging for a long time. Combined with, of course, the language democratization proposition as well as interactivity at the core of this IPL free digital experience that was provided, how does that then, just an overview of how that impacted the advertiser's point of view? What did you see and hear from advertisers in terms of how this piece was sort of impacting their media plans, their campaign deployments? What did you hear? What was some of the feedback?
So I'll start by saying, look, some of the stuff that we did was a first time. At least at this scale, 4K hasn't been done. And I think at least in the near future, it's quite evident that 4K is absolutely differential. If you saw some of the images and the videos that came out of 4K, it was remarkable. But we had tested it very well during FIFA, so we were pretty confident that it's a massive differentiator. The other big thing was around the multi-camera stuff. So as a consumer sitting at home, I could choose which camera angle I want. So I could think of myself sitting in the stadium or sitting in the dugout, and I could have that view. And that is actually quite differential. It was quite unique. Why it appeals to a lot of advertisers, and remember, IPL is the biggest media property that there is, and advertisers don't need to be sold in onto IPL. Sure. But what we were able to demonstrate is how different, how personalized is this whole digital experience, and that's what gave us engagement, and that's what's been interesting for advertisers.
And the engagement kind of kept going, right? Especially when you took it with the interactivity and the language. I mean, we saw a whole bunch of memes come out, for instance. So it was really fascinating to see that whole piece. But coming to my next point, which has been another sort of feature of this specific IPL, given that the platform just opened up, you know, with the free streaming and, you know, the interactivity, the languages, it in a way, and this is again from what I've heard from advertisers as well as media buyers, it democratized the platform and democratized television for a lot of advertisers, particularly smaller advertisers and first-time IPL advertisers. For a lot of people, IPL was out of reach. So just your take on how that explosion played out, and what are you doing now to, you know, keep it going?
No, that's a great question, actually, and that's the heart of our revenue strategy in some ways. One of the things that television doesn't do is it doesn't give you the opportunity to get lots of advertisers to participate. As you said, you know, there is a limited number of people because you've got to at least buy a spot. What digital does is that it gives anybody the opportunity to come in and participate and reach consumers through IPL. This is because you can choose your budget and you can choose the number of people you want to reach, and it delivers on that. The key about why it appeals to a lot of advertisers is because it's very targetable. If I'm selling women's shoes and I have a retail store in Calcutta, there is no reason I need to target, you know, a man in Kanpur, right? I can just absolutely focus on the market that and the demographics that I want to target.
Precision, yeah.
And the precision of it actually really is hugely appealing because it means zero wastage. That followed by the fact that after targeting, I can actually measure and say, look, did I actually reach this person? And hence, what is the call to action? That's a hugely differential advantage over anybody who's choosing a legacy medium like television. And that's where it makes a massive difference. So it plays to scale. It's able to provide branding. It's able to provide targeting. And hence, it's a complete package.
Now, of course, you mentioned linear TV, and one of the things we've seen this season again is that digital surge fueling the rise of connected TV, which is just going northward, right? And now when it comes to, you know, how do you see sort of the CTV piece of the puzzle play out going forward, especially when you compare it to linear TV?
Yeah, I think CTV has been a big part of our success this season. At last count, and we'll release the official numbers soon, but we had over 12.5 crore people tuning into connected televisions. And that is a massive number. And we think it'll keep going up. And it'll keep going up for a few reasons. One is that, you know, a significantly large percentage of televisions that are getting sold now are smart TVs capable of connectivity. But even beyond that, what we found is that as you know, a large number of smart TVs there, but even in the smaller towns, the tendency of a lot of people is to sort of hook up your mobile to your television and hence make that a quasi-connected TV. Now, those numbers we can't track, but that is over and above this. Connected TVs have been a huge success, and you know, if I were a betting man, as would you would say that, look, in the future, in year 2, year 3, it will be even more significant. There were some concerns expressed by some folks saying that, look, will data costs come in the way? I think the results are there to prove. Data costs, etc., haven't really come in the way of IPL consumption. You know, we haven't heard of any complaints of that.
There's an absolute explosion, of course, of data and content, mainly driven by, of course, you know, free streaming services and on large properties like the IPL. But coming to the sort of the brand, marketer and advertiser point of view, how do you see their expectations of outcomes from connected TV plays changing going forward?
Clearly, this year, people have chosen connected TVs over high-definition TVs. There is, you know, it's fairly common knowledge that connected TVs have been far more successful, and because of exactly the reasons that I mentioned, which is they're targetable, addressable, measurable, and, you know, also provide great scale. You get 4K, which is not possible on conventional television, and hence connected TVs have been great. But I do think that the next level will be next year when it actually takes on standard definition also. And that's where it'll be even bigger in terms of game change.
Absolutely, and it appeals to cord shavers, cord cutters.
Yes,
you know, that number just keeps growing. Anil, just like my final question to you, given the success that you saw with the 2022 edition of the FIFA World Cup, and now with the IPL, how do you sort of keep that momentum going now? What do you have your eye on? What are you focused on? And especially driving sports consumption, viewership on digital. What's going to happen going forward?
So it's so while IPL and FIFA you did mention, we have already a fairly large number of properties on our network, including WPL, which has been a massive success last year. We have the South Africa T20, we have NBA, we have European leagues, we have all the hockey that there is in the next 4 years. We have Olympics coming up on our network. Plus, there are a couple of big acquisition targets which are there over the next couple of months. So I think we intend to be the home of sports, and we intend to be the home of sports for times to come. So certainly our plan is to continue to engage the sports consumers by providing them a variety of offerings, and some of which they are just going to sample, and some of which they are going to deeply consume. And since we have that information, because we are a digital player, we hope to make and certainly create a big business out of that.
A streaming sports juggernaut.
Yeah, that's a tagline we should take.
Well, thank you so much for your time, Anil. It was lovely chatting with you, and lots of insights and data to take away from our chat. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Delshad. Thank you.
So there you have it. A thorough breakdown of the headline-making results of the IPL this season, the impact of the digital viewership surge on media consumption, how we consume sport and advertising is clear. The question is, will the next season match it or beat it? More records and stumps to break, perhaps. Thank you for watching, and stay tuned to Storyboard 18 for more.